This is TV18. And you're watching CNBC TV18.
Rahul Bhatia says he doesn't know what the term entrepreneur means. To him, it's just someone at the right place at the right time and someone who gets the right break. Bhatia returned to India in the mid-1980s after spending a few years in Canada studying to become an electrical engineer. By 1988, a telecom business he was keen to launch hadn't taken off, and Bhatia was ready to go back to a PhD and a university lectureship. When his father's ill health forced him to stay back and look after the family's airline services business. InterGlobe Enterprises, as we know today, was born in 1991 and manages India's most profitable low-cost carrier, Indigo, a transport technologies business, a mid-market hospitality venture, an ultra-luxury boutique offering, and is now entering the retail space as well. I met Bhatia at the InterGlobe headquarters in Gurgaon and talked to him about why sticking to the fundamentals is so important to him, and on how he's learned to manage the system and how he defines his passion to win.
Rahul Bhatia, I appreciate you joining us here on CNBC TV18. You know, the last time that I had a conversation with you, I have to say it was perhaps one of the hardest interviews that I've done in my career. I'm hoping this one is going to be a little bit easier than that. How's life changed for you since then? You were getting an award then, you're getting another award, or you've just been given another award this time around. It's been about a period of 2 years since the last one. How's life changed for you?
Life goes on. I mean, I wouldn't say that life has changed at all.
And I was thinking about this while I was on my way to get to meet you, and there's a sense of disbelief. You know, how are they managing to get these numbers? And now, at least from one particular individual, there seems to be a sense of distrust. How do you cope with that?
So at a personal level, I'm saddened. I feel disheartened at times, but you know, I guess every sort of individual is entitled to their own opinion.
But did it surprise you? Did it disappoint you? Were you taken aback, the fact that your profits were questioned in an open letter to the employees, you know, by the chairman of another aviation company in this country?
We like every other airline, submit our financials to the
to the DGCA, yes.
Every year.
Yes.
And it's open for scrutiny, and the numbers are the numbers. And it's for anybody to sort of figure out if we are fudging the books or we are not.
So where do you think this comes from then? Because as you said, you submit your accounts which are audited by KPMG to the DGCA. It's up there for public consumption. There's been a lot of questions on whether your sale and leaseback arrangements are driving the kind of profits that you see. You've come out and defended that argument as well. Where do you think this stems from, and why do you think it's not going away?
I suppose that question probably is better posed to the person who's saying what he's saying. My only sort of message to the team internally is just keep your heads down and just keep focusing on what we have. We have seen some early success. The only thing that sort of concerns me at times is, you know, success brings complacency and sometimes some misplaced arrogance. And if there's one message that is consistently given out to the team is we have a business to run. We are, you know, in the context of aviation, Indigo is still a very small company.
Okay, so let's move away from distrust and let's talk about disbelief, and the disbelief in the fact that how have you managed to get where you have managed to get, and what makes you work, why are the others failing where you seem to be working. And I know that, you know, it's because of the fleet optimization. I know you keep your costs down. I know you think about every rupee that you actually spend. I know you don't have in-flight entertainment systems. You don't have in-flight magazines. You try and extract the maximum number of miles from every liter of ATF. But what is, if I were to ask you, the key differentiator that allows you to successfully operate a low-cost airline where others have failed?
You know, in simplistic words, Shereen, I think that the religion at Indigo is quite simple. Firstly, the airline business is never short of foolish ideas. You know, that we know. And I think at Indigo, the people are trained to essentially sort of analyze thoughts of people and ask themselves the question, if we were to implement this, does it actually generate more customers, which hopefully should translate to greater profitability, or not? And if it doesn't, just drop it. I mean, to give you a simplistic example, I think it's taken the company 5.5 years to make a decision on whether to serve a warm beverage on the plane or not. Should we be doing it today? To my mind, we shouldn't be. But finally, the management of the company overruled my views, and we have warm beverages on board. And it's just that it adds complexity to the level of service on a plane. Would people not fly Indigo if we were not serving a warm cup of tea or coffee? I don't think so.
So why did you give in?
Well, finally, at the end of the day, the business has to be run by people who run the business, and I'm essentially just a shareholder, and finally, I suppose the views of the management must prevail.
In 2005, when Bhatia and his US-based NRI partner Rakesh Gangwal gave Airbus its single largest order for 100 aircraft, the industry was in shock at the sheer audacity and skeptical about their flight plan. He proved the skeptics and critics wrong, and 6 years later, Bhatia has placed an order for another 100 aircraft worth $15 billion at the Paris Air Show, leaving the industry in shock and awe once again.
Do you believe a key differentiator is that as far as Indigo is concerned, there has always been emphasis on getting the back end right and then aligning the front end to the back end, as opposed to other airlines where the constant obsession is with the front end, perhaps not enough on the back end?
I suppose you're right, because when you look back at 2005, and for the airline to have at that moment taken a punt of ordering a large sort of making a large order on aircraft, and then repeating that last year, I suppose in many ways it reflects that the company actually plans for the...
And the current bust is you know, we've seen this cycle before in India. Why do you believe so many people have failed if it is such a slam dunk opportunity?
One has to be absolutely anal about, keeping costs under check. Why are others failing? I suppose the question is better posed to the people who are failing. But I really think that the difference between the companies that are making money over the ones that are not actually lies in the cost structure of the business.
Of the strategic misadventures, I mean, buying out Deccan, buying out Sahara, running JetLite, Jet Connect, and a full-service airline. So it was, again, I come back to my not aligning the front end and the back end. You didn't really change very much in terms of costs. You were just putting out what your marketing was telling you in terms of new offerings to the customer.
At Indigo, we are not believers in acquisitions or mergers. We just don't believe in it. And I think that if you looked at aviation history around the world, I think if you did some analysis, you will find out that even when two of the best performing airlines have chosen to come together, at best, when all is said and done, a few years later, when they look back at this thing, it ends up being a zero-sum game. What they discover through that journey is that a lot of those advantages, more often than not, get completely mitigated by the lack of integration of cultures.
So there's no question of you trying to pick up an Indian aviation company?
I think not till Rakesh and I have our last cent sort of invested in this business. We don't think so.
So I come back to my differentiator. Do you believe that it was because you had a very clear customer promise that set you apart from the rest in the business?
Punctuality to us, and I've always said that even before we had the airline, I mean, we all fly, you fly. Getting to your destination on time is more powerful than the fanciest meal that you could be served on that plane. It's as simple as that. One of the myths that we have busted, we think, is that being a low-cost operator has no relationship whatsoever with being low quality. It's got nothing to do. These are completely separate issues, and I think we've been able to deliver to the country a world-class airline and being low cost at the same time.
Prices surging, balance sheets deep in the red, and a muddled policy stance, saying that the last 12 months have been turbulent for the aviation industry in India would be an understatement. But Indigo has not only managed to stay afloat, in comparison the airline has soared, turning in profits, expanding aggressively, and through this staying true to its customer promise by simply being on time.
I want to ask you what your position is, because again, you know, it's perhaps been misinterpreted, your position on FDI in aviation. FDI is allowed. Whether a foreign carrier can come in and pick up a stake in an Indian carrier is the question at this point in time. The government's been sitting on that cabinet note for a while. There's all kinds of speculation on why they've been sitting on that note. Do you believe the time is right now for foreign carriers to actually be able to come into India, since you do enjoy competition?
So our view, and I think on occasion I've been sort of misquoted on this. Why does government entertain a change in policy just because one or two specific companies actually are in trouble?
That's not the first time it's happened.